Pacing is very important in game design because one of the key factors to encourage player engagement is good pacing. It doesn't matter how fun your game is. The bottom line is that if your pacing is poor, players are not going to continue playing your game. So today, we'll discuss how pacing works and its effect on the player experience. Before I start the video, please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy game design content. Now let's talk about pacing. Pacing can be of two different types. There is narrative pacing and mechanics pacing. Narrative pacing is essentially the same as we see in movies. It essentially follows a narrative curve of high and low intensity moments of the story. Here, you can see the narrative curve for the movie Star Wars. As you can see, the movie starts with an exciting moment where Vader captures Leia. Then, it starts to wind down when we're introduced to Luke and Obi-Wan. It goes up again when we see that Luke's parents are killed, and you probably get the point of where I'm going with this. As you can see, the graph keeps going up until reaching the climax, where Luke uses the Force to destroy the Death Star. Most movies follow this graph, and even games follow it as well. The reason is because it allows for tension to grow as the story progresses. This curve makes the viewer or player interested and curious about what is going to happen next, but there is another type of pacing, and that one has to do with mechanics. This one is essentially the same graph as the narrative one. It is just inserted in between the overall narrative graph. As you can see here, there are high tension and low tension moments in a game. In most cases, high tension moments are the combat encounters with enemies, while the low tension moments are when the player is trying to solve a puzzle or is just exploring the world. The best example of this is Uncharted 2, and Naughty Dog games in general. In those games, the player is always doing one of three things, either engaging in combat, exploration, or puzzle solving. However, the game doesn't let you do a specific thing for too long, and that is because they want you to be engaged with the game. If you pay attention, a combat encounter is always followed by some kind of exploration or a puzzle. This serves as a way for players to relax and take a breath before the next encounter. Games need to provide these breaks in order for the player to not lose interest in the game. If a game has a lot of combat all the time, it is going to feel stressful or unfair for the player, so they will probably end up frustrated. On the other hand, if the game has a lot of low intensity moments, they will get bored, because essentially nothing is happening on the screen. Another good way for pacing is cutscenes. Since these don't require input from the player, they are a great way for players to see the impact of their actions and take a break. These are mostly used after a boss fight or a huge action sequence. One important thing to consider when pacing your game is how often players are finding new stuff. There is a balance in this, and you don't want them to find new things all the time. You want to give them their time with a specific weapon so they can learn how to use it and give them time to get used to it. Once they're used to it, you can throw in more challenges for them to overcome. This goes hand in hand with difficulty. You don't want to have super difficult encounters at the beginning, or when you just introduced a weapon, because that can cause players to instantly lose interest in your game. One important thing for your game is how often you teach something to a new player. When a game starts, players don't really know anything about how it plays or what to do, so it is important to not bombard them with a lot of information at a time. You have to give them time to experiment every time you throw in a game mechanic, so that they can get used to it and feel empowered when they learn to play the game. Same thing goes for rewards. Players need to feel rewarded when they achieve something in a game. However, if you reward them for everything or wait too long between rewards, they're also going to get frustrated. You don't want them to think your game is unfair. To avoid this, make sure to space out rewards accordingly. Consider maybe teasing them every now and then to let them know that something good is coming their way soon. You can do this by showing another character using an ability the player will later acquire, or through a skill tree, where they have one skill they want and the progression needed to get there. Another way you can control pacing is with the environment. If you constantly give the player small dark corridors to explore, they are going to feel exhausted. At some point, you need to give them expansive areas as well. This will help them feel more freedom and less tense while playing the game. Another idea is to give players a small safe space when starting out. They can learn how everything in the game works. After that tutorial section, you can then introduce them to the bigger world. This will ensure they don't feel overwhelmed from the beginning, and they can actually enjoy what the game has to offer. As you can see, pacing is a hard thing to master, and is by no means a one-size-fits-all thing. Every game is different, and what might work for a horror game is not necessarily going to work for a walking simulator. I encourage you to experiment with it and see what works and what doesn't through playtesting. And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. What do you think makes for good pacing? Please let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you like this video, please subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!